Hello YouTube, it's the Atheist Guard again. Sorry, got my coat on. It's cold as balls in these buildings because they shut the heat down at night. They don't care about us. They're concerned about energy savings, which I'm okay with. I got enough clothing to keep myself warm. Anyhow, I want to give you all a basic talk about one of the things I went through in my transition from being a theist to an atheist. Once I became an atheist and started learning more about the universe and everything, and the way things actually work, I started realizing that the universe is kind of screwed up. Doom is certain. We know for a fact that the Earth will not be around forever, that we will, in fact, reach a cataclysmic end, and that nothing lasts forever. Even the atoms themselves break down. There's a heat death to the universe. If the universe keeps on expanding, if it contracts, there's this big crunch, where basically it's the inverse of the Big Bang. But even before that, even within our lifetimes, there are cataclysms that can take place because, again, we don't have this, protecting entity on high making sure that we survive. There is no protection. Life is extremely fragile and precious for that reason, which is the reason I value life more now as an atheist than I ever did when I was a theist. Because as a theist, you take it for granted that you got this big daddy figure protecting you from really, really bad things happening to you. And that's just not the case. That's just not the case. So at some point, some of us go through this thing where we have to consider, man, it is really messed up. What is the point? Something horrible is going to happen, and you start worrying about these things. And the worry is not necessarily irrational. Because, in fact, something bad could happen right now. It could happen tomorrow. It could happen 100 years from now. It could happen in your lifetime or your child's lifetime. So what do you do with that worry? You can't just pass it off and say, I'm being protected. Someone's going to make sure that nothing bad happens to me. This cosmic, God is going to help me and make sure that I don't suffer some horrible end. That's obviously not the case to a lot of us. So what do you do? Well, let me explain some of the things that cause these fears. And there's two different types of cataclysms that can occur. You have the unpredictable and you have the predictable. They're both equally frightening, just for different reasons. Predictable cataclysms are like mass extinction events. Like we know for a fact that there have been multiple mass extinction events throughout Earth's history. And it oscillates. It goes to a mass extinction, to a lull where there's some decent amount of life propagating, to a mass extinction, to a lull, and there's some life propagating. And each of these events happens in sort of a period. And scientists aren't exactly sure what's going on with that. Major meteorite impacts seem to happen around these times, as if there's some periodicity to the meteors hitting the Earth. Like the KT event was one of the, I think is the most recent one that caused the extinction of the majority of life on the planet. Well, mainly dinosaurs, and let us mammals actually move forward because we survived it somehow. Our predecessors survived it and led to us being on the planet where we are now in this lull. But the timing of it indicates that we are about ready to have another one of these events. Isn't that kind of messed up? I mean, at any point, at some point in the future, it seems probable that there's going to be another mass extinction event in which everything on the planet's got to be strained to survive, that there's going to be another mass extinction. So you have this fear that this could happen at any moment. Same thing goes for the Yellowstone Caldera in the United States, this huge supermassive volcano that exists. And right now it has nice little things like, geysers spewing, Old Faithful, things like that. And you see some magma, you get some earthquakes, some things like that. Nothing crazy, but that sucker could blow. And it has in the past. And there's craters, and they can map those craters as over time, and it seems to drift, kind of like the hot spot that developed the Hawaiian Islands. It's very much the same kind of thing. That thing could blow at any moment. Matter of fact, it's past due for blowing. And if that thing blows, we're talking about the center of the United States becoming basically a caldera. Tons of material ejected into the air, extinction, at least in that vicinity, and then dust plume, pretty much everything that you would expect from a volcano eruption, only on a continental scale. So there goes the United States. The effects of that would drift around the world. It could have problems with sunlight for the entire planet. I mean, we're talking about a huge event. That could happen too. And that's predictable, and it says that, you know, the science on it basically is indicating that, yeah, it's past due. It's bound to happen soon. Now, you know what, I'm going to check my camera because I don't see the red light, and I don't want to be standing here talking and not actually recording. Give me a second. Okay. I think it says it's recording. I'll keep on going. All right. Now, there's the unpredictable events. And these are more abstract, but that makes them also more frightening because they can happen at any moment. We don't have any period that we're matching it to say, okay, we got a few thousand years, we got a few million years before this has got to happen. Like with the sun, you know, when it expands, it basically engulfs the planet, scorching it to a cinder, eliminating all life possible on the planet. And actually, some models say it's got to expand past the orbit of Earth and consume the Earth, in which the entire planet's going. So those kind of things where we can predict what's going to happen by looking at other, like stellar evolution just in general, and we know that stars eventually go into this red giant phase, and you know, there goes all the planets that are too close. But we have these unpredictable events as well. Let's see what's a good example of an unpredictable event. Rogue planets. All right, so we typically think of like, here's a star, we got planets orbiting the star at various distances and whatnot. Well, what happens if for some reason a star doesn't maintain its orbit? If something happens to the star that it's orbiting, if the planet doesn't maintain its orbit, the star goes supernova, doesn't destroy the planet, where does the planet go? It just keeps on going in its trajectory. Or if a planet, you know, forms just out of dust and everything in the universe without a star nearby, just from a nebula, and maybe there's a black hole nearby, it might get sucked into the black hole, but it might get its orbit twisted around the black hole and not get pulled into a stable orbit, but get flung at extremely high velocity through the universe, you know, through the galaxy in which it was born. And we know these things happen. I'm not sure what the observational evidence is for that, whether we know for a fact that we can observe a planet that is a rogue planet that is moving at a high velocity, but we know this is entirely possible, if not probable. I mean, our universe is fine-tuned for making black holes. That's what it does really, really well. So, and, you know, gravity's always doing its thing, so we're always getting planets formed and suns formed and things like that. This can happen. And these planets would not be visible to us except for when they're getting really, really close. And if one of these planets was to come through our solar system at extremely high velocity, it would disrupt orbits of the planets that are in our solar system. It could smash into a planet that's in an orbit in our solar system. You know, we're talking about a cataclysmic event. Earth gets thrown out of its orbit by some other body passing through our solar system, sufficient that it, you know, messes with our velocity around our sun. We're screwed. Because without the sun, we don't exist. Our entire continued existence is based on that solar radiation getting from the sun to our Earth. So if we're flying through space, the Earth's going to stay warm for a bit because it actually generates its own heat to a certain degree, but eventually it's going to cool down and you're going to have this big giant frost ball that once was the planet Earth. And I don't see how humans are surviving in that situation. That can happen at any moment, completely random, no way to predict it, and we wouldn't be able to do anything about it even if we could see this rogue planet coming for us. What are we going to do? You can't blow up a rogue planet. You got to launch a bunch of nukes at it to see if you can throw it off its trajectory. There's no scenario in which this works out in our favor. So that's one of those types of random events. Another random event would be some quantum effect giving rise to like a space-time rift or something. You know, we're going a little far-fetched here, but quantum effects happen, and there's a probability that very improbable things can happen. They're not impossible, they're just improbable. Like there's a probability albeit very small, that I am going to just suddenly disappear and reappear on the moon. No, it's just a matter of quantum physics. It can happen. Now, generally, the sheer massive number of quantum entities that represent my body sort of cancels out any likelihood that that will happen, but it's not impossible. And in the same way, a quantum effect at some place in space-time could give rise to this weird quantum rift that could completely disrupt the solar system, again, because that's a very delicate balance of velocities going around the sun and everything. It's not even that balanced. I mean, we're not exactly orbiting in a perfect, orbit that's going to maintain itself indefinitely. We're actually sort of spiraling into the sun. We actually lose distance every year. Very small distance, but we're losing distance because orbits aren't perfect themselves. But yeah, if you have like a space-time rift that happens, you're screwing up all kinds of things. It's actually kind of unpredictable what that would do. I mean, how would that affect gravity interacting with planets, on the opposite side of that rift? What if the planet was near that rift when it happened? Would that rift apart the planet because there's this weird gravitational potential difference between the two areas of normal, quote-unquote, normal space-time and this disrupted space-time in the rift? What happens? We don't know. But that kind of a thing can actually pop up and occur. I mean, we're talking about highly improbable events that can nonetheless happen. So you start compiling these different cataclysmic scenarios and you're thinking, you almost get into a nihilistic type of thinking at some point, because what is the point of it all? If at some point today, tomorrow, 50 years from now, or whatever, everything can be rendered meaningless by not existing anymore. Well, the point is living now, in the present. And I kind of borrow this from a sort of a pseudo-Buddhist philosophy that you live in the present. You don't worry too much about tomorrow. You don't let the past affect you so much. You just think about the present, take each day as it comes, and work with it, because that's the pragmatic approach. It's nothing to do with supernatural. It's not a supernatural belief that have a few Buddhist things in your ideology here and there, because again, atheism doesn't give you anything. It's just a disbelief in God. That's all it is. You don't actually have a philosophy to base anything on as an atheist. You have to build that. And I build mine from humanist principles, rational skepticism, appreciation of the scientific method, things like that. But also I've taken a few things from Buddhism because it's just practical. I don't want to sit here and worry about what's going to happen tomorrow, the day after. I don't have to worry about these crazy universal problems that could affect us at any moment, mass extinction events and all that, living in a Mad Max type future. It would be like the best scenario where we actually don't go extinct, but life gets completely disrupted. I don't have to worry about that. Another one of the really good cataclysmic events that is entirely possible that could lead to such a bad state for us is if a rotating star goes nova and actually produces the gamma ray jet that some of them do. Not all of them do this, but when certain types of stars go nova, I believe they have to be a supernova in that case, it produces gamma ray jet of extremely high energy. And this shoots off from the star at extremely high velocity, almost the speed of light in a lot of cases. And sometimes you gotta shoot off in the opposite direction too, as the star, becomes a white dwarf or a neutron star or whatever. If we happen to be in the bullseye of where that gamma ray is flying out from that star, we're talking about no more ozone layer. It could strip off a couple layers of our atmosphere. And our atmosphere is ridiculously thin to begin with. And we're talking about a planet thousands of miles across, and the atmosphere is a little sliver of air that hovers just above the surface. Just like the oceans are just a little sliver of water on the surface. I once heard somebody compare it, like if the Earth was the size of a basketball, it would not even feel wet. Because that's how shallow the oceans are compared to the girth of the actual planet. And we have a pretty small planet, actually, but just relative to the size, these things are negligible. So when that gamma ray hits us, that gamma ray burst hits us, it's going to screw up everything. And we're talking about, potentially turning the entire planet into a desert, killing off a crap ton of life, causing cancer at least on a wide scale, even if it grazes us or something. We're talking about a huge hole punched through the ozone layer, and we know how that turned out. Luckily, our ozone layer is kind of recovering since we abandoned the use of CFCs, because, of course, man doesn't have any effect on the atmosphere, like some people would claim. Anyway, that's just another version of cataclysm that we don't have to worry about, because there's no point in worrying about it. There is no point in worrying about it. There's nothing practical you can do about it. You can't change what's going to happen. You can just change what you're doing right now and hope for the best. Now, hope is almost like faith, because you really don't have nothing to base it on, because things like this can happen. And in some cases where there seems to be a periodicity to the events, will happen. But nonetheless, how many years has it been since we had a major extinction event? How many years has it been since this? You can play the probability game to give yourself some solace, but in general, don't even worry about it. Live in the present. Think about your future abstractly. And I'm not saying disregard your future, because even recently I've kind of taken a mindset of where I look at what I want to be, where I want my family to be, where I want my life to be, and I've started making modifications in the here and now that would ensure that future. But I'm not worrying about the future. I'm actively trying to change it by doing things now. That's why I'm getting my degree. I'm actually only 3 classes away from finishing that thing. I'm going to get myself a better job, better paying job. I'm going to get a better paying job regardless, even if my degree doesn't have anything to do with it, because once I'm done with college, I can leave this crazy job where I don't do anything and actually make videos for you, and actually have a job where I get worked, where I actually have to have effort, which means they pay you more. Instead of getting paid what I paid here, I get paid like $27 an hour or something a little healthier to live on. Especially in Virginia, where it's pretty low cost of living anyways, but nonetheless, this is not my permanent solution. This is just a means to an end. This is a job where I can do my college work and get paid for it, and even have time to do this kind of BS. But what I decided was, let me see what I can do to make my situation better. And I started looking at, well, what am I? What do I have to my benefit? And I went back to I am a veteran. I was in the military. My benefits are kind of limited because I didn't finish my first tour. I got released on a medical discharge, honorable, thank God. They didn't give me a general or a dishonorable discharge. It was all honorable. It was just, I was let out, because I wasn't able to stay in, basically. And I served well when I was in, so I got an honorable discharge. And I started figuring out that, wait, there's this thing about VA home loans, and you don't have to have a down payment, and you don't have to have PMI. So your monthly payment for your house is going to be cheaper than what you pay for rent of the same house out here. I'm talking about $1,300 instead of $800. I'd much rather pay the $800 mortgage than pay $1,300 to somebody else to pay their mortgage. At least this way I'm actually going to own something in 30 years. That's the way I looked at it. I did the application process, started nailing it out, and it actually was ridiculously easy. The VA home loan process is pretty streamlined, gets you going. And I started doing that. I started taking classes a couple years ago so I could get my degree, so I can move forward. This is all of this thinking of, where do I want to be? What can I do right now to be a better person, to make my future what I want it to be? And that is the kind of thinking you need to have. Don't worry about this BS right here. Even though it's probable, will happen, can happen, don't worry about it, because you have to go on living. You have to persist. There is a point to life, and that is to live. We're an organism. That's the main goal of being an organism. Remain alive, survive. And in the case of humans, we can abstract even further, and we love, and we feel, and we appreciate. And there's music to listen to, there's movies to watch, there's family to love, there's everything to live for in this world. And no reason not to make that the best existence you can possibly make it, even if something like this can happen in the future. There's no reason not to put that effort forward. And that's the real point of this video, is that think about what you want to be. Think about what would make your life better. Look at your past experiences and your credentials and your qualities, your skills, and say, what can I make those do for me now that would make my future better. And use those things, modify them, and work on it. Just work on your goals. Just work on what you need to do. Don't procrastinate about it, because there's no point in procrastinating either. Why would you do that? I did that for about a decade, basically, for just procrastinating because I didn't have the motivation, I didn't understand the fragility of life in general, the purpose of living, and I was just kind of going by each day, just letting things happen, dealing with them, but not really being proactive, because I didn't see what the point was. And then when I became an atheist, I really didn't see what the point was because of crap like this. And I eventually realized that I can't let myself be that way forever, because I'm never going to get anywhere if I do that. I'm never going to advance in my life if I do that. I have to push. I have to make a better life for myself and my family. They deserve it. Even if I don't find my life that meaningful, they deserve it to have a meaningful and pleasant life. So I'm going to work for them. So, in a nutshell, that's what I'm trying to say. Find goals. Make plans. Make them broad, though. Don't make them too specific, because that way you won't be let down if you don't achieve a specific goal. But like I said, I've always loved computers. I've always had these things in my mind. I want to work on computers in some capacity. I kept it nice and broad, and then I got myself a really good degree that covered a whole wide range of IT. It's an IT degree specifically. They call it like an associate of science degree. So it's basically focused on a general area of study. That way I could go into maybe developing software or just administration of a network or home installation or troubleshooting computers, cable installations for networks in government buildings, things like that. Tons of those jobs out there. I said, you know what, that's a great idea. And actually a friend of mine recommended that to me at the birth of my son. He said, Greg, get your ass back to college. Go to college. He says, you need to get a better job, you need to get a better life. You love computers, learn computers. Do an IT career. And I'm like, why haven't I done that before? Why haven't I bothered pushing myself to do that before? I don't have a good answer for that. I don't know why I procrastinated so long that in my 30s, my late 30s, I finally decided to get my ass into college and make that happen. I don't have a good explanation for that, other than I've always been kind of lazy. And now I have a bit of a push behind me, because now I realize there's no infinite afterlife. I don't have this infinite afterlife making this life meaningless. I got 70 years on this planet, probably less because I smoke. I need to make this life matter as much as possible and as good as possible, because this is all I'm guaranteed to have anyways. And why would I want to waste my entire life and have a meaningless life when I can have one that's greatly beneficial to me and my family and everyone else? Maybe help the world. Who knows? I don't think I'm that grandiose that I can actually do that, but it's a goal nonetheless to at least spread some knowledge, help some people out. And that's why I do these videos, because I want to have some sort of an impact greater than just my immediate family and myself. I want to actually help other people. Anyways, thank you for watching YouTube. I'm going to be posting some more videos soon. It's just now that college has started and I'm in my last semester, I really want to do good this semester. I've done pretty good in my last semesters, and I'm almost at magna cum laude level, but I really want to finish strong and make sure that I know what I'm talking about when I get my next IT job, because that's important to me. So find what's important to you, push towards it, do something now in the present, and don't worry about the future too much, especially about things like this that you can't do anything to prevent. There's no point. Do what you can do on things that you can affect. Don't worry about things that you have no effect of whatsoever and have no way to avoid whatsoever. There's just no point in worrying about such things. Anyways, thanks a lot, YouTube. I'll catch you later.